it's been a topic of discussion in here for several months on maybe breaking up his report into what is codes and what safety, and then how much money to spend on each, and the whole thing. So at the end of the conversation that we had with Mr. LeCount, myself, and Mr. Facto, he is paid from Sable under one comptroller's item line, with the exception of contractual expenses. Okay, so we're looking into that and see whether or not that may settle that whole issue, because it wouldn't be two separate salaries on the budget that way. It would be one salary for the one position and not broken into the two different job titles. So I will keep you informed as I move forward on that. I do have the comptroller's numbers that Sable uses under his title and under contractual. That could be anything from like we just talked about under cash receipts, when he had to pay New Orleans Sheriff's Department to submit, court documents to somebody that lived over there now. So that's under his contractual. Would be like, that would be maybe a contractual expense. So we'll look into that. I'll bring back what I have to report to the board after we figure out what direction we're going to go. Then we can figure out what direction we're going to go. Town clerk, probably anything on clerky side. Assessor, this could be, oh wow, you started it, Rick. Alright, no, I'm just picking on you. But actually, Gary and I had a pretty long conversation this week already, before I even knew you were coming here about this. I asked him if he could make a couple copies of the pages, or one page in the in his book, so that we had something to look at, just so everybody's on the same page of what we're talking about with the equalization rate. Okay. I know even a few meetings ago, one of the residents had questioned the equalization rate or the assessment and how that it applied. So we're going to try to break this down a little bit, and I'm going to use his talents, because this is what he does, along with the county, to get where we're at. Basically, just a little overview. For the last 2 years, going on 3, if we don't do it this year, we have not reassessed.
Thank you.
And went to 100% assessment. Okay. If I can remember from recollection, I think Mr. Potiker said there were only 2 towns that weren't up to the 95 at least right now.
Yep.
That the state and the county's pushing for. We've been holding off on a reassessment, so I know Mr. Gerlach's been taking a pounding from not only the state but the county on doing a reassessment. The problem that we find ourselves in is that same problem that we had discussed over the last several months. Is the fact that if we reassess right now, due to the fact that all real estate is inflated, I mean very inflated, compared to where it was just a short time ago, that you are going to hurt some people. We discussed, a couple of houses where their taxes may go up $800 just from the increase of the reassessment. He's going to get into a little bit more detail on it again, but our equalization rate at the end, I'm taking it that's why Schuyler Falls is showing 82% for the equalization rate, because the county went ahead and decided that's about where it should actually be, as part of that
Right, they make an
thing that you were
adjustment.
talking about that they're doing. Because we didn't do it, they tried to figure out and then redo it and put it in there at where it should be. So when we're looking at the tax cap, and I don't want to go crazy into this because it gets very confusing. okay? When you're looking at the 2% tax cap that we're mandated to stay under each year, there's a few figures that go into that. One of them is your total assessment for the town, okay? What we can assess, how much we can get out of our properties. The other is how much we put in it, all right? And the next one is what we get from like franchises. Like we just got, what was it, 18,000? I said $18,444.61 from Charter Communications. So you pop those numbers into the state comptroller's computer, and it will give you an amount, basically, of whether or not, with your new budget, whether you're under or over the tax cap. And then if you're over naturally and you haven't passed a local law to exceed the tax cap, then you have to redo your numbers and change things around. Punch them back in and until you come up with a rate that is under the tax cap. Unless, again, you want to go over that tax cap. We haven't did that in the 2 years. We haven't even passed a law to go over the tax cap in the last 2 years. We've been lucky with the franchising fees and the tipping fees from the landfill that we've been able to stay underneath that 2% cap. At some point, it is going to start pinching us, if you know what I'm saying, because oil's going up, electricity's going up, gas is going up, diesel's going up, all the stuff that, you know, the highway department uses, that we use and the town uses, as well as every resident uses. And at some point in time, we are going to have to look at going to do a reassessment, or sending Gary out to do a reassessment. All right. The problem is, from what I understand, is that if he reassesses that year, we go to 100% assessment of the new assessed that you do. Yep. Correct?
Let's go 100%.
And I'm afraid that if we do that right now with the inflated market of housing, that is going to really hurt people. I don't know how much longer we can hold it off, because this will be like going on our 3rd year of not doing it. And I know that, like I said, he's getting pounded from the county and the state to do it. And now they've actually got a way to kind of equalize that rate, even though we're not. But I think it's gonna, like I said, my worry is until this market kind of flattens out, it actually goes back a little bit to where it should be, I think it's gonna hurt some people. So feel free to ask him any questions. He's gonna go over basically what that would mean to a couple homes here if we did it. We discussed several that morning, and there was one that stuck out in particular, but I've talked enough. Go ahead.
You know what they have to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a little pressure to put it at 100, because everybody's going to be at 100 next year. State comes in with the equalization rate, and this is what they come up for next year. Well, all these towns, except Osceola, had an update last year. You know, you heard about the rule, right? And Flashbury had one, and what happened was, we didn't have one, but yet we're still only, looking back to the second page, so all these towns did updates, and we're sitting there 82%. So are they gaining or are they losing, you know? So they gotta go back this year and raise the people another 30, 40,000 for assessment. Right now, what's happening, if you look at the sheet with the houses on, you see the top number, we'll say, I think 100, third one down. It's assessed at 256 right now.
And just for the record, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
We've redacted, blacked out everybody's name and their property on here. We're just using figures. That way we're not picking on anybody in particular. I'm sorry, go ahead.
They're at 256,700. State comes in and says, what they're paying tax on right now is 270,000. Even though my assessment is where they're at, because of the equalization rate, that'll bring it equal to the other towns, supposedly. So everybody's paying a little more than because our tax rate is a little higher. I think schools mostly, they take it through school. Our tax rate is a little higher than their tax rate. But when I figure the value of a house out, this 270 is low. If I was to do it next year, it'd probably be about 325. So in theory, they're not losing.
The homeowner?
Like the school district. I have trouble with the school district. The town, it won't matter in town as far as you'll pay the same. Just about the same, yeah. School districts are spending the money on us. The minute they get this new assessment, they automatically
Utilize it all.
they look at their tax rate, they don't look at the rate is not, they got $20 this year, next year, and I raised probably $40 million. They're gonna spend that. They have found a way to go over the 2% cap.
It's,
Because Plastic had an update last year, and Cernak, for example, raised the budget $3 million.
so their loophole is where a town has to add in all capital improvements. To the best of my knowledge, we discussed this the other day at the supervisors meeting with all the different town supervisors. And they have a loophole where they do not have to include their capital improvement projects. So that money comes right off the top, which means that they can allocate more spending in that next year's budget and still stay under the 2% tax cap. Well, we can't, because as a town, we have to show all the revenue.
So when
If
you
I'm not
get these
misspeaking.
artificial turf football fields and these lights for football fields and big parking lots, you're paying above the 2%. You're paying for that.
And we looked at a home that was, say 75,000, which probably would go to like 130,000. So with the new assessed 100%, right? And even like, if I'm not wrong, you were saying like, even if he's a veteran, right, and say he, gets 20-something thousand off this year, it will go to 30 or 35,000 off with the new assessment, they are still gonna pay more in their taxes and lose money that they're not having to pay in right now, because they're going up from 75,000 to 130 on the overall. Even though the equalization rate will kick in and it's supposed to stop, you know what I'm saying? Basically stop that.
What the equalization rate would bother you a little bit on would be on getting loans, probably. The problem I got, morally, probably more than anything, is that the update wouldn't affect the town as far as the money they get in. They'll get the same money in that they did before. If you put a budget of so much money, that's what they're gonna get. But like I said, at school, it's a hard situation. We're gonna look not bad, but we're gonna be brought out in the public for we got like an 82% equalization rate. State hates that. They're right after us. So, but I can't personally see any advantage. I took a house. It's assessed at 105,000 right now. The new assessment would be 150. The guy's got a veterans exemption on it. So right now he's paying on his taxes for veterans. He's got $75,000 that he's not exempt on. He's got all done. He's got 130,000 that he's not exempt on. So he's losing his amount he gets for veterans.
It would go as far.
So when the state's asking me, I tell them this: I don't work for the state. I work for Town Scholar Falls, and I have to look out for their people. Not the state. I can't.
We're having a town board meeting.
It's what's good for our people. So it's a situation. I have to raise everybody about 30%. He's talking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000
At the end of the meeting,
assessment.
but they asked me on.
You have to do that?
Pardon?
You're gonna have to do that?
If we go to 100%.
If you go to 100, if I
At
do
the
the
end of the
update,
meeting.
I've got to raise it drastically.
Whenever the meeting
Because
is
of the
done.
market. Now, if the interest rates move that much,
When it
It's all
was
going down.
Stop talking.
They had a double wide sale, I got a sale with double wide, they're
You can come in
160,000.
if you want, there's seats
On a lot.
over on that side.
You know,
And it was also discussed at the supervisors meeting the other day too, that, that's when Mr. Catherine brought it up, that he thought that we ought to band together and come up with a max amount of times that you can reassess somebody in a certain period of time. Now, we didn't throw any numbers out, we didn't throw any years out or what that is. But even speaking for the town of Plattsburgh like he goes, we've reassessed them, 3 or 4 times in the last few years. And, people are feeling it. I mean, we haven't, we've been lucky enough that with the Casella money, franchise and fees, it offsets our budget enough that it's not really hurting us right yet, okay? I'm not gonna say that it's not going to in a couple years, you know what I mean, or even next year, or we'll see how this year runs out with the inflation, because
revenue goes down.
that 2% tax cap that the state puts us under, one of the figures that you use to do that is, again, your total overall assessed value in your community. So if that's low, it does lower the amount that you can raise your budget the next year, and stay under that 2% tax cap. That makes sense to everybody. But,
If it wasn't for the schools, I'd say do it, but it's hard for them to say do it when the schools are.
So where are we at now? What are we looking to do? Nothing? Or
So-
just let Gary do what he does?
well, he's been doing what he does. I mean, we've been showing support with him the last 2 years, and actually like he said, he will do whatever the board recommends, because it's our recommendation. And he goes, I'll take the heat for them, the assessor, one way or the other.
It's gonna be an uproar, that I know.
You know,
Or
Well, I don't want that to